Hello and welcome everyone to episode 142 of One Piece at a Time, the One Piece read-through podcast where we read and discuss 5 chapters of the One Piece manga each and every week. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host and freelance letterer at Shonen Jump, Brandon Bovia. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm, of course, Brandon Bovia, letterer of manga like Dragon Ball Super, Kaiju number 8, and many, many more. And I think we'll probably save kind of like our broader thoughts on Fishman Island probably for next week, right? But
yeah,
like, I feel like I do kind of feel like I'm a little more positive.
Yes.
The ending is actually, I feel like by the end here, quote unquote, like, you know what?
Yeah, it's one of those interesting things where the ending really does come across strong. Like it's very different in how the villains are treated, but as far as the actual content, yeah, it's pretty good. It's hard to actually compare this with Thriller Bark because
they feel like they have different priorities.
Very much so. They're still probably towards the bottom for me on both accounts. But I don't dislike them as much as I thought.
I will say, and maybe we'll save this for the actual wrap up, but like, man, some of the discussions we've had for this Fishman Island stuff is like some of our favorite discussions that I've had so far. Like, it is just, yeah, surprising. It enables us to get really like deep and crunchy in a way that I feel like even for One Piece, I feel like is not super common.
Mm-hmm.
So the highs are like ridiculously incredibly high.
Yeah, for sure. And we can't even exactly get right to the manga yet because there is some news that came out between the last time we recorded and now where we got some information about the anime that is rather fascinating. The first big thing was that it's going on hiatus until April of next year.
Yes.
That's a massive amount of time.
The anime has almost done a complete 180 on its reputation, I think, in the past about 5 years or so. Mm-hmm. There was a point for a future story arc where they overhaul kind of a lot of the production pipelines and stuff, and the quality just like shot through the roof. It is incredible. And it has, for the most part, been able to keep a ridiculously high quality bar. But like the one bugbear is that for some reason, I don't know who it was, at Toei or Fuji TV or whatever, but like somebody on the production side refused to let the show go on break and refused to make proper like filler arcs. So we were stuck in this loop where all we really had was a very slow, stretched out adaptation of the canon material. And it's like the show looks gorgeous. It figured that part out, but it is still by and large really slow and really kind of rough to watch sometimes. It feels like forever people have been screaming for the anime to just go on hiatus. Like the world will not end if One Piece is off the air.
Let the pacing breathe.
Exactly. So it's like, God, they finally did it. So it feels like pretty big news. And I can't talk specifics, obviously, but where the anime is at, where they're going to be taking a hiatus, I think is really smart because they are basically right at this, like they're about to start the third act, more or less.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as I know, they basically immediately did the most recent arc, and I assume they just decided to stop once that arc was finished.
It's tricky because we have still maybe I feel like probably a good about 1/3 of it left to adapt. So it is kind of a weird place to stop, but I also think probably I would hope that they wouldn't stop in the middle of it, right? Like, because the final act is nuts. So I'm glad that they're going to be able to come back in April and handle all of that content. Just hopefully we'll be able to get more than one chapter adapted per episode. It's kind of what I'm hoping for. Because for a long time it was that the anime would, and sometimes half chapters. Actually, I think. And which is, I mean, when you get down to it, because
I guess if you look at it like this, where you see how, like as we get into 646 eventually, you could definitely get a few episodes out of this, just because of the fights.
Yeah, we've been in like half chapter territory lately, probably for a good while. So getting kind of even back to one to two chapters per episode would be fantastic. And the manga, the manga goes on breaks usually about once out of every 3 weeks or so. We're at a point where the anime tends to have more episodes per year than the manga has chapters, which is a problem. So really nothing but good news, I think, as far as the anime going on hiatus.
Absolutely.
Until April.
And just, we have odd timing with this show.
We really do. I really feel like, I'm sorry.
No, you go for it, because like I was going to bring up, we had that whole thing with Monsters getting an anime adaptation right as we were in Thriller Bark.
Yes. I think at this point this podcast is going to like catch up when the manga ends. I think our timing is going to be that good.
It feels like it because we just got it announced along with the hiatus that they're going to be recutting and I think even redoing some of the scenes for the Fishman Island arc.
Yes.
And just the Fishman Island arc was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I hope that this strikes an interesting cadence, because what they're doing is they're basically like, until the anime comes back in April, they're airing a remastered Fishman Island, and they are cutting down what was, again, adapting about 1 chapter per 1 episode. The anime version of Fishman Island is 58 episodes long. Whew. And they are cutting it down to 21, which like we are in like Dragon Ball Z Kai territory.
Thank God.
Yes. And I know, a lot of people are like, oh, why are they starting at Fishman Island? I think it's rather obvious that they want the time skip as a clean break. Mm-hmm. I kind of hope what this is that we'll kind of get like a cadence where it's maybe we alternate between remastering old arcs and adapting the manga.
As a seasonal thing, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, if we're kind of doing half a year on, each kind of alternating, that would make a lot of sense. And I personally think the anime has always had flaws in terms of like animation quality and pacing and stuff like that. People like to think that it does get worse over time, but I think those issues were always kind of somewhat prevalent. But I think Fishman Island is like around where it starts to get really bad, and the animation is really rough in Fishman. It's not great.
Yeah, I've heard One Piece also suffered around the same time that Dragon Ball Super was coming out, and those infamous first episodes. So yeah. I think it also makes sense to start with Fishman Island and starting with the time skip because, well, you have the One Piece coming out.
Yeah, which is going to start from the beginning. So now we have, we're going to get a remake of East Blue, and we're going to get a remaster of like Fishman onwards. And I am still personally of the opinion that the One Piece is probably, I think that production is not meant to last. I personally don't think it's long for this world, or otherwise, like, if you're kind of worried, oh, isn't it going to be redundant if they're just going to remake Fishman Island? Like, yeah, that'll be in like 2038 by the time they get there. So, I still think that remake is maybe not the best use of resources, but if it has to exist, I'm glad we kind of have a remake of the very, very old material and sort of like, you can just kind of touch up and recut the sort of slightly more modern existing material. And sort of the shots they showed off too of like the kind of the comparison between how Fishman Island originally looked and how it's going to look. Like they're definitely not reanimating it. It is really just like
better shading almost.
Yeah. It's like the lighting and stuff that they developed when they overhauled all that stuff. Like it just, everything kind of has more of like a soft kind of gradient look to it. Like it feels less cheap personally. I've never really liked how sort of basic like the lighting looked in sort of that particular era of the anime up through like 2018 or so. So I'm all for this. I think the new stuff looks great. As you've seen, I'm not a huge Fishman Island fan, but I actually think 20 episodes might make it feel even better paced than the manga.
It might.
There's
very
potential there.
Yeah.
So I actually think I'm going to tune in for this because I'm really curious.
I am too, and it's something I can actually watch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can get a feel for kind of the modern One Piece production quality, which is just kind of like I'm very selective with the things I show you. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but look at how cool this looks.
We should probably get to it because I felt we could take a little bit of time for that because we're not really going to have a lot to say about chapter 646, Frog. other than the cover, because it looks like Skypiea has really just reformed itself into a theme park with this rubber band land. And we see Nola providing the bungee jumping, while Isa has become a vendor of sphere clouds, basically balloons. And it is weird to see not even adult, but teenage Isa. Like, she had a growth spurt.
I feel like that's the case for all of the pre-time skip child characters. They're all just tall now. But I guess that's I feel like that's true to life. You see your kids, your other folks in your family, and you're you see them again after 2 years, and you're like, who are you?
Well, it's also the fact that she doesn't have that hat on. We always saw her in. We only saw her without the hat by the end of the arc. So
yeah, I don't think I would have known it was Isa if not for the descriptive text.
Right. I might have struggled until I was I had just had that random remembrance of kid character. Ah, yeah.
Yep.
But into the chapter itself, we get Chopper explaining how he's mastered this form. Well, kinda. Basically, he learned how to fight in this state for 3 minutes with a rumble ball, so now he doesn't have to worry about going berserk. And we even get the creepiness of him getting all complimented and him doing the whole happy wiggle dance in that form, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, it's a good visual gag. It's terrifying, but
it's a nice comparison point for his state in Enos Lobby. So
yeah, very much so.
That's cool. Basically, this is the chapter where we finish off all of Hodi's men, all the executives. It's basically, let's show off what everybody can do. And here's Usopp with his human drakes, which leap out of the ground to ensnare anybody that draws over their heads, and then launching them with the trampolia to send them flying. And he'll finish them off in the future, but you're just you're completely helpless now. And now here's Frankie versus Squid Dude. I've already forgotten his name again. And Squid Dude has his ultimate attack, the Light Bright Spear, which is from the top of his head. And now it's Zoro versus Yozu. And Yozu's coming at him with a bunch of swords despite breaking some. And we also get the title of the chapter from that one. It's frog. He called it. Zoro's calling him a frog.
And that's it. Yeah.
It really is just set up for all these until we get to Brook, who uses. I honestly, Brook's finisher, I think, might be my favorite of everybody's.
I think so. Yeah, it's really cool.
Zio's this is my range. The instant you step in this circle, I'll pulverize your bones to dust. And then you just hear a bit of humming and a whoosh goes by Zio's shoulder. And all of a sudden, Brook's on the other side saying, "Oh, pardon me, I seem to have broken your circle and slashed you already. There's a chill about. Do be careful." It's what the? And then sheaves his sword, blizzard slice, and ice bursts out of Zio with his cut, and even does a little haiku as he falls to the ground. It's okay, Brook, that's badass.
Once you sort of realize, we're just going to get 2-page spreads of everybody's finishers, it is awesome seeing everybody just completely show off.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as we were kind of talking about last time, it feels particularly satisfying for Brook, who never really got his shot.
He finally got his win. Got to see the combat, really show off his stuff, and not in a hugely impressive fight, but something satisfying at the very least.
Yeah, pretty much. It's fine. Not my favorite Brook fight, but hey, it's cool that he gets to show off.
Yeah, it's I compare it to maybe Nami's second fight that she fought on her own, because the first it's definitely better than her first fight.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally.
We get to see Usopp's Impact Wolf, which is just a freaking wolf made out of vines that just slams into this his opponent, which is wild to see, that's for sure.
I love, for such a scaredy cat, Usopp's plant-based ability sets are all kind of terrifying.
A little bit. We got mandrakes, we got the trampoline stuff, we got this big bad wolf. I guess it's I just thought about this with you saying that. I guess it all ties into kind of fairy tales.
Yeah. It feels like conquering his fears almost.
Yeah. But also telling stories,
putting him in control. Yeah, you're right.
It's pretty cool. It's weird to have him be so plant based now with his attacks, but it still works with his sniper abilities.
Yeah.
As for Chopper, I mean, what are you going to do with Chopper? He's huge. He hits him with his cloven rose palm, demolishes the hammer and the hammerhead dude. in one
That's
go.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, that's a sign. It's kind of funny that Chopper didn't end up fighting the what's his face.
oh, the giant dude, Watatsumi.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Frankie shows off his ultimate attack and opens up the cockpit and unleashes his Frankie Radical Beam, which impresses Chopper and Usopp to the point of tears. The fact that he has a laser beam that fries that squid guy.
Which, to be fair, it's pretty awesome.
Oh, it is very awesome. But I do love how Nami and Robin are just like, eh.
Yeah, I think Robin being unimpressed is even funnier with the sunglasses on.
It absolutely is. But we do get Jinbei getting to show off quite a bit with his vagabond drill that just sends a ripple that bursts out the other side of Watatsumi's huge body.
I love the scale of this one.
Yeah, it really shows off the power for Jinbei, which causes Watatsumi to leak and just burst into the air. But that's when Sanji comes in to do the finishing blow as he taps into the nightmares that he had to endure to light his entire body on fire and unleash his hell memories kick.
Which, again, the source of this, not great, but, hey, Sanji he can set his entire body on fire now, so that's something.
Yeah, that's neat in and of itself. I just wish Sanji didn't have to constantly refer back to his hell, which I guess, to be fair, it was him under duress of assault for 2 years.
Yeah, quote unquote assault. I really think it's his poor frail male ego, which I think that does add to the humor of it. But yeah, I this will get more interesting later.
Okay.
There is actually more to this that I think kind of makes this ability a little bit less like. Ugh.
That's good.
Yeah.
Then of course we get our final 2-page spread of Zoro versus Hyojo, and Hyojo's unleashing his octopus 8-sword style, and Purgatory Onigiri just completely slices through him, and that's it. Every single one of them. I do like the last line here. It's like, oh, I thought you were just some frog from a very tiny pond.
Zoro in particular feels like he had the least amount of effort put into this.
Sorry.
like I get, because his dialogue is so much more like, man, I've been waiting for a real challenge.
I mean, to be fair, he has been training with Mihawk, so
no, he's. I feel like maybe not quite to the extent of Luffy, but he's definitely up there in terms of like, yeah, he's kind of far and away better than any challenge right now.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's it for the fights essentially. So let's.
Yeah, pretty much. I laughed that we really just went through them just one after the other. Once I realized what was happening, I was like, oh, we are just done. Okay, that's pretty funny.
Yeah. So let's take care of that final challenge with chapter 647, Stop Noah. And we get to see that Rocky and Canis are also working at Skypiea at a pumpkin cafe with their pumpkin noodles. And we get to see Canis' father and the military leader guy, I forget his name. And of course, Rocky's there, and Rocky pretty much looks the same. All of them look pretty much the same. There's something, I don't know what it is, but Canis does look different, and I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it.
It might be the lips to me, but like it also just like she looks weird in Oda's current style.
Yeah, like her lips were always kind of like that, but maybe it's also because did she have like she was in a very simple dress beforehand, and now she's kind of in almost a t-shirt type thing, like just with the thin spaghetti straps and an apron. I don't know. I can't tell. It's just something about it is just about her feels different. But even if I just look at her head, something feels different.
I'm not quite sure either, but I don't really remember.
Yeah, I didn't bring up a comparison point, but either way, as we get into the chapter itself, yeah, they're all down. It's like everybody's just marveling at the fact. It's like, oh my God, they were all defeated with complete ease. That's insane. And here they all drop, and we get a nice hero shot with all the Straw Hats plus Jinbei. And Jinbei's commenting like, you guys live up to Luffy's standard. And we get, of course, arguing between Sanji and Zoro. And I like how Frankie's like, Chopper, you're taking up the room of my giant robot. You got to move over a little bit.
He's right though. He's just like, I built this giant robot, but now here's this giant reindeer making my robot look small.
But I do love Robin asking, so what did the robot do anyway?
Which, she's not wrong, because Frankie did everything himself.
Outside of the giant sword and I think some sort of gun out of the shoulders, that's about it. Yeah, which is funny in of itself.
That's great. She feels like a disaffected mom who doesn't know like oh, those things that my kids are into. It's just like what is the stupid robot anyway?
And I like the sense it's like you can feel like the crowd wants to jump up into this giant cheer until they realize, oh right, Noah. They look up and oh God, Noah. It's huge.
Yeah, like can we even escape in time? Like, it is so massive. Is there really any way at this point to, like, it's pretty much just down to Luffy.
Yeah, pretty much. And they're just, it's like, is Straw Hat going to save us in time? What are we going to do? And yeah, we go to Luffy and he is still unleashing on Noah. And it's just like, go, you can do it, Straw Hat. Keep going, Straw Hat. Straw Hat. And I just had to think back to how Luffy said he hates being cheered on.
Yeah, he hates being a hero, but he ended up, he's the hero of Fishman Island in this scenario.
And he's just shouting out, stop moving, boat.
Yeah. God, at this, because you can kind of see it in this spread, like, he's actually taken out like a pretty big chunk of it, which is insane.
He pretty much took out the entire top part of the deck, like all the stuff above the deck, but there's still a lot below that.
Yeah.
But we do get some interesting dialogue here where, everybody cheering is like, don't give up, Straw Hat. Fishman Island is in your hands. Stop it. Go, Straw Hat. And we do get Fukaboshi saying, I think it's Fuka. I'm blanking on the name, but Fuka, whatever.
I think so.
Saying, we had no choice but to destroy Noah, father. And you even see Neptune saying, we must bid farewell to the ship of promise. Lives must come first. Forgive me, Joy Boy. We will be unable to fulfill the promise. I'm like, oh.
Well, I'm really glad that we're going to touch back on this later on in this episode of the podcast, because otherwise I'd be like, oh, dang it.
Yeah. So. It's better to bring it up there, but it's like, oh, Neptune is aware of this Joy Boy. So
yeah, and that therein is the significance, and sort of it's tying back to what we learned about from that poneglyph like 10 chapters ago.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, Luffy's going all out. You can see him bleeding because of that bite he took from Hody, but he just has to go for it. Like, he's mainly hurting himself, not anything from Hody.
It took me a second to realize. I was like, there's no way that wound is doing that much damage. But then I'm like, oh, wait, he is opening up that wound by just going to town on Noah.
Oh, yeah. He is losing a lot of blood and just going for it, to the point that Shirahoshi steps in front of him. And I love this. I love that it comes across as we find out Shirahoshi is the one to save the island.
Yes.
Because Noah has already stopped, because she took over her ability to speak with the Neptunians, and they grabbed a hold of the chains, and Noah has stopped because of them. And that is really cool. And I completely forgot that was the resolution to the whole Noah thing.
Yes. What a way to kind of turn it back around. I also really like too that, like, the first, like, we hear a voice say stop, and it almost looks like it doesn't look like it's a normal word balloon, because it's in kind of like the shaded like thought balloon, and you kind of hear like the key sound effect, and like Luffy's like getting a headache from basically it's telepathy or telepathy.
I didn't realize that at first. I honestly thought that was Shirahoshi screaming stop and him reacting to the pain of his shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And no, as we learn later, as we have more of this scene with the Neptunians, no, you're right. That is him hearing something, and that's that is fascinating, as we'll soon learn.
Yep.
But yeah, the Neptunians saved the day courtesy of Shirahoshi. And again, I love the fact that Shirahoshi is the one to save Fishman Island. That is really cool. and
Yes.
definitely subverts a lot of things in terms of what you'd expect from Luffy.
What I really like about this set of chapters is how like everything feels like it's kind of coming back around, and like all of the disparate elements that we've been introduced to are all, everything feels like it kind of has a role to play. And so now we had learned about Shirahoshi's ability, and now we are seeing it in action.
Yeah, for the first time for anybody. And I will say, like I said, I've been really excited about the fact that Shirahoshi saved a day.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also taken away slightly because you see the Neptunians comment. It's like, oh, what a mighty little man he is. If we had been a moment later, the island would be safe, but Noah would have been dashed to pieces. So basically confirming that Luffy would have been able to destroy Noah in time, but he didn't have to thanks to the Neptunians. Which on one hand is like cool that Luffy could have saved the day, but I think would have been cooler if Luffy couldn't have saved the day and it was up to Shirahoshi was the one who actually did the whole thing.
Yeah, although I feel like ultimately it still kind of makes sense because that, you know, they don't want to destroy the boat, and Shirahoshi both doesn't want Luffy to, you know, destroy Noah, but also doesn't want him to, you know, kill himself. I feel like that's why him having the wound was kind of like, it is kind of an important part of this whole thing, where it's like, no, we need to get Luffy to stop. Maybe he would have been able to destroy Noah and save the island, but, you know, I think they stepped in at the right time just to save himself.
Save Noah and Luffy, because he pretty much immediately passes out now once he realizes
it's like, oh, good.
Safe.
Yeah. Oh, also, I feel like we're glossing over the fact the Neptunians can talk.
Yeah, I mean, we that is a wild concept considering how long ago we saw them and how big they always were. And I always think of the Neptunians in terms of the very first One Piece opening, because they have that whole shot of them consistently going by the Mary.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we knew that Shirahoshi could talk to them, but we didn't. I don't think we realized that they'd be able to talk back and we'd be able to actually understand them, because, you know,
yes,
Neptune can talk to his whale, but we never hear the whale talk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So seeing that, like, they seem to have, you know, thoughts and feelings all their own, and, you know, the way that they remark of, like, basically kind of remarking to Shirahoshi, like, our power is your power. We're here because you called us.
Yeah, and that's really cool. Like, it's such a unique way that, again, as you said, ties in all the elements that have been brought forward up to this point, and really makes it satisfying. Like, Noah's messed up pretty bad, but it's not fully destroyed.
Yeah, so there's something there at least.
You just have to rebuild the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do love these final shots where you see Noah just hanging overhead, them marveling at the fact that Neptunians stopped it, and Neptune being relieved that it hasn't been smashed to pieces, and then the entirety of the island just unleashing in celebration that Fishman Island was saved.
One thing I want to remark about, I'm pointing this out because I genuinely do not know, but, like, the way that the Neptunians stop Noah is, like, like, Noah's got, like, these chains basically, and they all grab it by their mouths basically. And so that makes me wonder, was Noah always meant to be moved by Neptunians?
I think that's actually confirmed in this set of chapters.
Okay, wow. Yeah. Reading comprehension then.
No,
okay,
that's okay.
I was unsure.
Yeah, I can see it kind of missing that whole thing, but yeah, I think it's in next chapter that they do confirm that. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, it's certainly fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot of implications here that I'm very excited to unpack, because we're about to start getting into the lore half of this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these first two are relatively quick to get through, just because, you know, it's the basics. We're finishing up the fight, taking care of the major issues, and it's all kind of done. But we do have an SBS before we start getting into that lore stuff, as we find out that, yes, all the Admiral's wieners are magma, ice, and light. Of course they are at this point.
Of course. Yes, you know, he went out of his way to answer this. I feel like you can see Oda getting more annoyed by it, but he also he just loves to confirm it.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah, I feel like yes. Okay, there you go. You know, questions answered. A devil fruit will change every part of your body.
Yes, And speaking of bodies, we got people wondering when the Nami body pillow will come out.
Naturally.
The new design. Although I do love his saying of that. Like, I'd rather have one as Frankie because, you can put them over your arms and grab people's heads with them. They make cool sounds.
Oh, finally I can combine with Frankie.
Oh, yes. That's the dream, right? The docking. Just like
yeah, exactly. There you go.
But yeah, just silly things like that. Like, why does he have a fish head for his picture in the manga? There's no reason. He just did it. Well, let's get to chapter 648, The Road Toward the Sun. And I cannot remember his name, but my God, does he look boss as hell in this opening.
Is that Wiper?
Is it Wiper? I couldn't remember if it was Wiper or not.
I think that's Wiper.
Yes, I knew who it was. I just couldn't remember if it was if his name was Wiper or not. But yes, I think you are right. That does kind of confirm it. But yeah, he's one of Kami's guardians along with his other friends, and man, he looks boss as hell. Like he is.
Yeah, no, this is great.
He could be a main character in any other manga.
Yeah,
with that design.
I really feel like it's been really great. The Skypiea section of Decks of the World has been really great because that was a part of the world where we really kind of saw up close and personal, like again, kind of like the land conflicts, the cultural conflicts, and seeing everybody just kind of reunite and come together. They were trying to overthrow the Kami, and now they're the Guardians. So it really feels like Skypiea is they're doing great.
Yeah,
their society's on the up and up.
Really turn things around and fix those issues that have been plaguing them since the beginning, and it's cool to see. I like it. Especially because we're not going to really see or hear about developments up there easily, at least.
It would be hard to go back.
Yeah. It's time for as the Neptunians carry Noah away, we get a interesting conversation between them and Shirahoshi. It's like, we've been waiting and waiting for you to be born. This ship was built for us to pull, and there it is.
Okay, yeah.
It's been spoken of for years and years among us. Every few hundred years, our sovereign is born in the form of a mermaid for some reason. You're just, from that moment of your birth, you are our queen. It really does bring into the idea of other fishermen wondering, it's like, man, it's as though the Neptunians protected Noah specifically so that Luffy wouldn't destroy it, which we know that, but I think it's Neptune putting this out there. It's like, maybe Noah's important to them in some way. It's one of those things is like, the power great enough to destroy the world has finally awakened. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, well, I do think we will get to this later, but I think you can probably extrapolate just from that one line that if anybody were able to take control of Neptunians, that would probably be pretty dangerous.
Yeah. The sheer size and power. Like we've seen the Straw Hats and other characters slice up some pretty big fish, but I don't think they've ever been declared as Neptunians.
I like, and when you think about it, like the Neptunians have always been at the top of the food chain in the One Piece world. I feel like Oda goes out of his way to not really undermine that. And it's probably because he knew that, we still know almost nothing about the Neptunians. And I think the revelation that they have some form of sentience and some form of awareness and that they know what Noah is and that it has a purpose and that, they're supposed to protect it and eventually move it. I think from there you can kind of think they probably know a lot about this world is kind of what I'm guessing.
Yeah, I have to imagine
if I had to guess,
pretty old.
Yeah, how old I wonder.
Mm-hmm. But they position it in such a way that the bubble surrounding Noah merges into the bubble surrounding Fishman Island. Shirahoshi protects Luffy as it's all transferred, and they take the rest of Noah to a new resting place. And they mention to themselves, the human with the hat seemed to notice our voices. That can't be. Well, it did happen once before. True. And then we just get a 2-panel flashback of Roger calling out, wait, did you hear that? No. Who the hell's talking out there? And it's like, oh my God, Roger could friggin' understand at least hear the Neptunians in some way.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to know that was the Neptunians, but he was able to hear something at least. And this goes back actually to, I remembered the conversation that Rayleigh and the Straw Hats had on Saboti, because there was a whole thing about like, because back in Skypiea, right, it was like, Roger left a message in the form of a poneglyph, and then Rayleigh was like, yeah, we couldn't read those. And all he said was that Roger was able to hear the voices of everything in the world. You know, I remember back then we were like, what on earth does that mean?
I mean, at this point, he might have just extremely strong hockey.
I think that is probably what it is on some level. I mean, because we already know, like, when we see folks talk about like mantra and stuff, and like when Kobe was like, oh, I can hear like voices disappearing. You know, I feel like there is maybe some kind of advanced level of, I don't know, your hockey is so strong you are talking to like, you know, like animals like Neptunians. You know, there's some sort of further level going on here.
Yeah, it really seems like it. Like, at least that's somewhat of an implication that there's some higher level. Like they can't fully understand them, but they have a sense of them, and that's fascinating in and of itself. But they actually,
and what does that mean for Luffy? Also,
yeah, that's
really, again, those Roger parallels keep coming back.
Yeah, they do. It's really starting to feel like destiny in a way, and I'm wondering if like how they'll explain that. That's what's required of the Pirate King, to just have those qualities of Roger, or is Luffy unique in some way? And I'm curious if Oda will go into that.
I think we're moving in that direction. I say that knowing a little more, but it's more, I get the vibe that's kind of like we're gonna figure all that out at some point.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah. One last thing about this, like with the scene where they kind of the Neptunians bring the remains of Noah back to the seafloor, they also say, we will need their help to fix it, but it is a different age now. No idea what that means.
Yeah.
I got nothing. But clearly this was built by something, and maybe by a something that doesn't exist anymore, which is why I think they said it is a different age.
Maybe, but I can also see it being interpreted as there, as in humans.
Oh, you know what? That is also true. And maybe, oh man, there's so many different ways you could take this.
Yeah, we need their help, but do they even know how to fix it? So
right, do they even know what to do with it?
Yeah, but it seems pretty apt that they just happened to lay it near the guy that we know is a shipwright.
Yes, also true.
So that's fascinating in and of itself, but that's where we leave it off with. We don't hear from the Neptunians again after they drop off Noah in its new resting spot in the Forest of the Sea. Instead, we move over to Ryugu Palace and got news that I kind of forgot about, but also I was like,
Every time you forget about him.
There he is. Where the Minister of the Left has reported that they've discovered the kidnapped mermaids inside the palace. They're groggy, but they remember the kidnapper's face. Meanwhile, the treasure chamber has been ransacked and there's not a single coin to be found, which includes the Tamate box, the national treasure. So that doesn't seem good.
Yeah, it's Caribou. It's 100% him.
And what did we hear about the Tamate box before? Like because it's not the first time we've heard that mentioned. It's
yeah. Yeah, it was during the Otahime flashback. It basically, like, it's a national treasure, basically.
Yeah. Did they say what it could do at that time?
I will have to double check that. I might do that before the end of the show.
Okay.
just so that I can refresh my memory.
Yeah.
But it going missing is somewhat significant.
Yes. If only for what we learn a little bit later. But especially because Neptune seems really unconcerned. Is like, forget about the treasure thieves. After nearly losing the kingdom, treasure is trivial. Let the kingdom know the mermaids are safe, and it will serve as the final proof of the Straw Hats' innocence. So let's do that. And the news spreads. Everybody is celebrating and just like, okay, cool. We really can believe in the Straw Hats. And meanwhile, the remaining forces of Hody and the pirate slaves are being like, let us go. And hey, we're just humans in the wrong place at the wrong time. We're going to get going. And hey, this place is funded by pirate tourists, so let's go through the exit. And Jinbei just standing before them, be like, nah, I can't say you're not going to be all executed, but you're going to wait for the royal family's decision.
Yeah, you know what? You gotta let this play out. And so Jinbei's playing guard.
Which is good for him. But the Straw Hats are right around the Sunny Surmage checking in on things. And poor Chopper, by using his monster point, he can't walk for a few hours. But
so he still has a little bit of a downside, but at least he's not losing control anymore. And of course he's getting it, nice and comfy in Robin's lap. And Sanji is just like, I used my ultimate attack too. Please let me rest my head.
It's pretty adorable. I also like that. The monster point is still a last ditch effort. In a lot of ways. It is, yeah. Because it only lasts for 3 minutes and has that massive downside. And I think Chopper only used it here to show off.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah. But the princes come in and they are carrying Hody and Vanderdecken, who are both just completely knocked out.
Yeah.
Finally, it's time to put them in chains.
Yeah. Taste of your own medicine. I do feel like Hody, I feel like he was, after he got knocked out, he was probably in the crossfire when Luffy was just trying to beat the crap out of Noah. He
was. So I think he did take that first punch. So yeah, Hody's not in great shape.
I feel like he's in surprisingly good shape for being in the middle of all of those elephant gatling.
And I guess Vanderdecken was there too. So woof. Yep. Yeah, everybody's mentioning how, like, because of those pills and his transformation, Hody just looks like an absolute monster.
Yep.
To everyone around. But here comes Shirahoshi, and it's like, I need help. Luffy's bleeding isn't stopping. He went really far to try to save us, so we need help. And Chopper's giving instructions to Robin to...
and I love that. I love that visual.
It is really good. It's like, this is not how a doctor should work.
Yeah, he can't move, so it's like, Robin, flip me over.
And it's like, all right, I can stop the bleeding, but we need more blood. He's lost too much. So does anybody here have type F? And everybody in the crew is like, no, we don't have anybody on that's type F. And so just like, hey, can anyone in the square help? And there's a lot of people thinking like, I'm type F.
Again, thinking of things that are coming back around, as much as we hated that stupid nosebleed gag at the start of the arc, it was kind of important to introduce the whole laws and everything, and, the sharing of blood between the fishmen and the humans. So now we have a bunch of fishmen who could save him, but, even though Luffy saved them, they're still apprehensive about breaking the law.
And Shirahoshi is like, I'm not F-type, but I will still donate. Like, is it still red? Will that work? And it's like, and I love how Robin just moves Chopper around to talk to people.
Yep.
It's like, are there any human pirates that'll take care of this? What can we do? And all of a sudden, someone steps forward, and it's Jinbei. He's has the blood type of F. You can have as much as you need, and everybody's like, what the law says is like, nah, pirates don't follow the law. And
Jinbei!
Boss indeed.
He's the best. Come on.
Neptune even says, like, let him. What's wrong with that? The old laws are a curse all of their own.
Yes.
I love this whole statement. It's like, both the wounders and the wounded alike bleed red blood. That small, narrow tube, far too tiny to call a road, was unlike a prejudice born of hate and fear or battle washing blood clean with more bloodshed. But it was nevertheless more than any wild dream or ideal fantasy, a vivid and real representation of the true road toward the sun.
Yeah, just a fantastic sequence.
Just a nice spread of Luffy and Jinbei laying next to each other as the blood transfer happens. And it's enough that it brings Luffy to consciousness. He's okay. And the first thing he says is he looks over at Jinbei and says, "You gotta join my crew."
Come on.
Hell yeah.
Come on. After everything we've been I feel like we've been paying special attention to Jinbei during this arc, because I knew this was coming, right? Like, I knew that, like, the offer was going to, and I feel like at this point you kind of knew, right? Like, oh, Jinbei has been such a pivotal role and such a mentor to Luffy and such an important character to him, that, like, this final sequence of, like, them literally like, becoming like blood brothers, I really think is, again, not only significant for these two as characters, but I do love, again, the nosebleed gag notwithstanding, how we kind of brought the blood thing back around. Yeah. And now we have the sort of symbolically letting go of the old laws, and symbolically through the sharing of the blood, it's like the uniting of fishmen and humanity. And so it only makes sense that the first thing that Luffy says after sharing blood with Jinbei is, all right, you know what's coming.
I mean, these two have known each other, like, just imagine, like, just remembering the way they first met.
Yep.
All the way back at Impel Down, and fighting through the Paramount War together, and Jinbei being the one to calm him down after Ace's death. We've been saying this entire time that Jinbei is such a bro, and obviously we knew this offer was coming. But it really does emphasize just how much these two have bonded over the years.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's funny because in some ways, Jinbei has the least tragic backstory of the crew. But also his life is a lot harsher consistently than the rest of the crew.
Yes.
So
yeah, very much so. I think he's much more representative of like active issues
yeah.
within the world of One Piece.
For sure. I still love that it just, that offer goes out. It's like, Jinbei, you gotta join.
Yeah, like, oh man, I love it so much. And right, there was also the whole thing about Noah too. I feel like that is also, I feel like the theme of this set really does feel like kind of trying to let go of the past and trying to move forward in some way. And so it is sort of like you can't be bound by tradition, and you can't be bound by the past if it's holding you back.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I really got from this.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and move on to the next chapter, 649, The Dance of Breams and Places. And time to see how God is doing. I forget his actual name.
Yeah, I think Gonfor?
Yeah, Gonfor, that's it.
I don't know who the other guy is.
It's the chief. I don't know if he ever got a name. The chief of the
Shandians?
The Shandians, thank you.
Okay.
But I like that the bell is in the background. We got his weird bird.
Try to drink from with the beak. That's adorable. Yeah, I look Gunfor. Like I love it. He's just got a t-shirt and shorts. His t-shirt has the kanji for God on it. Like he's chilling.
God's just chill, and it's still a very interesting thing that God is the one without wings.
Yeah. Yes.
So we get into the chapter itself. Pirates are running off, just shouting out that we're in your debt, Straw Hat Crew. And some of the, like, one guy's like, I'm going to be Pirate King now. I was like, no, that's not. Shut up.
All right. Yeah.
But they can finally go to the new world.
Oh, I'm happy for them.
But they're also concerned. It's like, couldn't their hatred for Hody turn into Fishman as a whole? Well, if it does, it does. It's nothing we can do about it. But this has been long been a tourist attraction and rest spot for human pirates. So they have no reason to turn on the rest of us. We'll just keep it at that.
I do like that, again, for as frustrated as I was by kind of some of the kind of narrative conceits in the opening act of the arc, I do like, again, how things are coming back around, where now Neptune is, it feels more like he's just kind of letting it go, like, we'll deal with all that if it comes to it. Like they have no reason to hate us at this point. So.
I think he realizes like the path, like what he can do to serve Odahime's dream.
Yes.
And taking those steps. Like he's seen the seed that's been planted, and he is nurturing it the best he can to just like let her dream continue on.
I like this King Neptune a lot more than the King Neptune of roughly 30 chapters ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially interesting, this one is like, all right, remnants of the new Fishman pirates. And they're like, oh, don't kill us. We didn't even know Hody was the one who killed the queen. It's like, no, you're going to live here on Fishman Island itself. It's like, wait, you want us to live under the law? Well, I guess that's better than Hody. And everybody else is like, wait, you're going to let the hoodlums in here? It's like, the kids won't be safe. It's like, no. They're going to be working under military supervision as a penal service, but we're going to make use of your strength. And Fishman District itself closed off. We are not having that barrier between us anymore.
Yeah, this feels like the perfect way to resolve all of this. Like, what I love about it is that it feels like we are seeing King Neptune like push the Fishman society forward by just being like, hey, just because that's how things were, like we were burying our problems under the rug basically, and it's like we are going to drag you out into the light, and we're going to give you support and jobs, right? Like we can't let those feelings just fester anymore. And so I even like that it's the people kind of have reservations and misgivings about it, like really we gotta, we have to live side by side with these guys, but it is sort of like they need somebody to believe in them.
Obviously they're going to be working and they're going to be under supervision, but it's a nice way to sort of transition. It's exactly. Absolutely a transitionary point for Fishman Island, and it's really interesting. I like this idea, and how they're basically taking care of Hodie's hatred and just trying to disrupt it completely.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the goal here, right? Is sort of understanding where all this came from and trying to take steps to prevent it. And that I think is not only, well, it's like idealist, but in like a good, in a feel good kind of way,
Right.
We
he's
talk
also
so much
taking his son's words to heart, because this is all Fukaboshi talking about this, and he's taking what Fukaboshi said and he's like, okay, yeah, we're going to put this into action. We
have to look inward, and we have to fix ourselves first. So I like this as a decision a lot, and it makes me hopeful for the future of the Fishman Society for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. But of course they're asking, all right, where's Luffy? He escaped. Escaped? They escaped the square. Shirahoshi's still with him. So is Megalo, who's they set up some sort of bubble balloon to carry the Sunny away, and Shirahoshi's next to them. And it's like, no, we don't want to fight. We already did that, like a circus show of fighting in the middle of that square. We don't want to stick around and be treated like heroes. It makes me sick. This is Zoro, and it's like, I love that Zoro is just right alongside Luffy. He's like, the hero is the guy who shares his grog with others. I want to drink all the grog.
He's sharing the same one brain cell with Luffy. I like that he brings this back around.
I know,
but unfortunately, man, we were celebrating at the end of last chapter, but just right off the bat, you hear Luffy yelling in the background that Jinbei is refusing to join.
Usopp wants him. Chopper wants him. It's like, you should join us. It's like, no, I'm only saying I can't go right now. I am overjoyed for your invitation, and it'd be a pleasure to voyage with you, but I have too much business to take care of here, and I need to fulfill that before I can join you. But I promise that I will return, and if you still want me, I will join you then. And I will say right now, and I'm sure all of you who have are caught up, because I am very much almost caught up to where I left off. I have no idea where that is. I don't even know if it's fully happened yet, to be honest. I assume it has, but I have no idea.
I will say, because Jinbei is being really vague here about like what what other thing he needs to do is, and I think we are. I'm sorry. We are either going to find out next week or in a very long time, and I don't remember which it is.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I do know what he's referring to. I have a good feeling we'll probably find out next week, and it is fair. But I think the way that the dialogue is written here, of like, it does feel like, let's come back to this. I can't do it right now, but like we'll put a pin in it. Is kind of for the whole Jinbei thing. If you're excited to have him join the crew, I'm sorry, but like it's something that we'll have to come back to.
Yeah, it makes me wonder when he's going to make his reappearance. So that'll be fun. And Zoro's like, well, I guess that's decided. Should we just go ahead right into the new world? And Shirahoshi's like, no, you're leaving already. We want to thank you properly. And that's when the others show up. Is like, no. We must settle matters with a proper feast. And that's when Luffy's like, oh, feast.
Now you're speaking my language.
I also love this when we get to see the Fishman district that has been sealed off. Noah's no longer there. And within Ryugu Palace in the prison tower, there's Hodie, Vanderdecken, and all of his men still knocked out and put into prison garb.
But not Watatsumi.
Nope.
He's so big that they're like, all right, Kraken, just yeet him.
He just banish him, get him out of here.
Yeah.
Sormei is so
I love he feels like he's got a job. Like he got that little grin on his face as he's taking away Watatsumi, so he kind of feels like, oh, I'm helping.
And it's time to prepare for that feast. We've got hauls of fish, we got sea beast meat, sweets and cakes, booze by the ton, and it's time to get into that celebration where they're riding on bubbles that are on top of flounders that are nice and flat. It's so weird. And we get a full-on stage show. Like it is probably the most party these guys have ever got to celebrate post-arc.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when was the last time we had like a big breakout party? Was that Enies Lobby?
I think Enies Lobby.
I think that was the last time. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was also not even fully because Usopp didn't join them for that. In the same way.
That's right. Yeah.
So technically Skypiea.
Like Skypiea. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Which like that hit me, and that made this sequence feel really special in particular, just because once you had realized like how long it had been since we had like a proper celebration, which was always like it was something that Oda always went out of his way to do, was to have a big party with everybody at the end of every arc. And then it just like things just got more and more dire.
For sure. Well, we got Maria Napole, the greatest diva, singing for everyone. We've got the Swing Jazz Orchestra.
I'm sorry, I have to say it. I don't like the lips. I don't like it.
No,
it you know what? It's for a whole arc about African American coded racial tensions, and then you're just like, all right, here's this caricature. I'm like, yeah, so close.
And she is definitely coded black with that hair.
Yeah, it's the hair. It's like it, and the jazz feels like this feels very like Louisiana.
Yeah, even that guy that's part of the Swing Jazz Orchestra, not the guy on the trumpet, but the guy on the drums, definitely coded black.
Yeah. It doesn't bother me, but it's just like that one last little like, dang it!
You just had you tripped right there.
We had just some perfect. Just the themes hit me, and then I'm like, oh right, okay. So your heart's in the right place, Oda, but maybe don't.
Yeah,
but that's okay. It's party time.
It's party time, and at the very least, we got this wonderful 2-page spread with all the characters surrounding them, the band playing, the mermaids dancing.
I love Nami trying to get a drink with Fukaboshi.
That is pretty great. It's just fun. It's just a classic party scene. Even the little mermaid girls are there, and the drinking, and it's just nice.
God, it's been so long.
Mm-hmm. But that's always nice, fun. That's not what we're here for. Because Robin's always down to business.
Yep.
What does she do during these party scenes? She learns.
Neptune thought she was really down to business.
Yeah, she did. I was like, no, I still love my wife very much. So.
Well, and I love like Neptune's panicking, and then Robin's just like, "Who's Joy Boy?"
He's like, "Oh, I read the poneglyph in the Forest of the Sea. Who is he apologizing to?" And she's like, "You can read that? I'm from O'Hara. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to say." It's like, no, I trust you. I'll tell you everything I know. So we finally learn more about Joy Boy. He's a person who lived on the surface during the 100-year void, so at least 800 years ago. And that message was meant for the mermaid princess on the island at the time. It was an apology for breaking a promise made with Fishman Island. The contents of the promise are not clear, but someone will come along to fulfill the promise in Joy Boy's stead. And according to the royal legend, we believe in that day and uphold our part of the promise by protecting Noah through the generations. So it is not until the day of the promise comes about that Noah will fulfill its actual purpose. So it's all connected. Joy Boy,
it's all
Noah,
connected.
The mermaid princess. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, we saw the Neptunians take the Noah to the Forest of the Sea. So if Joy Boy was meant to use Noah, could he have the power to control Neptunians? It's like, no. The only way I can do that is the mermaid princess of the time. So Shirahoshi can do the same thing, correct? Yes, that is her latent ability that came into to full today. But it does not bring me any joy. And that's because, and Robin actually understands why, because 2 years ago on the poneglyph in Skypiea, she learned the location of an ancient weapon. And that location was here. Oh yeah. I forgot all of this. I'm like, oh my God.
Yes.
All Brandon's saying about how important Skypiea actually is just like, oh my God. Yep. So we continue on with, could the mermaid princess who lived in the time of the Joy Boy have another name? A name that Princess Shirahoshi, who has the same power now, will inherit as her own. So her other name is in fact the ancient weapon Poseidon.
There it is.
Holy crap.
Whoa. So I got a lot to talk about, and that's where the chapter ends. And boy, I got like a laundry list of things to say about this. Because if you remember on the last episode of the podcast, I was very like, there was something I wanted to say, and I wasn't sure if I should say it. Because I knew that this reveal, that Shirahoshi is Poseidon, what I wanted to say last week was the only other ancient weapon that we know of is Pluton, right?
Correct.
And we know that Pluton is a giant battleship. And they had the whole, the schematics and all that fun stuff. And so I was sitting on it like this whole arc, and it felt like Oda wanted us to think that Noah was, if not Pluton, then tied to it somehow.
I did not even make that connection about Pluton being a battleship. I'm just like, oh, is Pluton another crazy strong person that passes their abilities? But no, Pluton being something similar to Noah. Oh, God.
Yeah. So I think knowing that, like, so now, because again, this throws a wrench into everything. Because again, all we knew about Pluton was that it was a battleship. But now, our second ancient weapon is Shirahoshi. So it's like, what in God's name, literally God's name, are these things?
Makes me very curious what she learned about Pluton in Alabasta.
No comment.
I don't think we've learned that fully yet. It's just
no, we have not.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And now I feel like I'm getting giddy because now at this point, 650 chapters into the story, we are now starting to hit the point where things that were hinted at and teased years and years and years ago are going to start slowly kind of coming back into the forefront. And you start to see just how long of a long game Oda is playing with some of these elements, like the ancient weapons, like that because back in Skypiea, when Robin read the poneglyph, she said Poseidon, but she didn't read out loud the location, that it was on Fishman Island. So even back then we knew, or we knew of another ancient weapon besides Pluton, because they were talking about that in Alabasta. So it's just like, oh boy.
And she doesn't mention its location, it just mentions reads its location. So
Yes. The other thing is that I feel like we can extrapolate enough of this information, and I don't remember if this was clear or not earlier, but like the poneglyphs are from the Void Century. Like I think we can put a pin on that one, right?
I think that's a pretty safe bet at this point, considering how much they talk about the Void Century. So
yeah, it seems like all of them are at least related to it in some way, shape, or form.
And that also likely ties into why it's a miracle that anybody can actually read it, because they probably, during the Void Century and whatever the heck happened there, and the way they erased that century, probably got rid of all the people that left the poneglyphs as that record.
There's certainly something to that. It feels like more and more that these messages were kind of put here for a reason. And I feel like that reason is probably why it's the Void Century. That's why they don't want anybody finding out about it.
But it's fascinating too, because some talk about ancient weapons, but this one is just Joy Boy leaving an apology message. So they certainly range from what they could be. That
is certainly the case. There's also one thing that I thought about just now, and we've seen it enough times that I think I can point this out. But again, because I don't know what ultimately the function of this will serve, but we are now hearing about how Fishman Island has to protect Noah, and that is sort of the duty passed down throughout the generations, right? And that is now the third time we have seen this between the Shandians and their poneglyph, where that was their whole thing, was that they had to protect this. And it wasn't until Robin read the poneglyph that was like, the one where Gold Roger said, "I hereby guide this document to its end." And that was his way of saying, "You're good."
Yeah, you don't have to worry about this anymore.
You don't have to worry about this anymore. And Alabasta as well has a similar history of like, our royal lineage has to protect the poneglyph. So now it is starting to feel more and more like it doesn't feel like a coincidence that we have all of these cultures with a duty to protect the poneglyphs or something related to the Void Century.
Right. And interestingly, these royal families that are protecting the poneglyphs and these places that are protecting the poneglyphs are, well, at least in Alabasta, they're part of the world government, but they're not celestial dragons.
Mm-hmm.
So you can extrapolate from there that maybe the celestial dragons rose into power because it specifically, I don't know, left the others out. I don't know. It's all tied together, and how it actually comes together in the end is something I'm so curious about.
You guys, celestial dragons, I think, have false god vibes for sure, right?
Yes.
Like I think that is where Oda is going with this. I mean, because they are so just like objectively terrible.
For sure.
That it feels like we are learning more and more bits and pieces about just how the world was, how it is now, and sort of kind of piecing together the hows and whys. And this is the stuff that I'm just addicted to of getting these little scraps of information about the past. And that is nothing quite hits like a good lore chapter.
Oh yeah. I mean, it really comes down to those theories for the end, where it's like, all right, so obviously we need to stop the rule of the celestial dragons at some point and just sort of overthrow them in some way, but that's not exactly easy. But bringing the truth to the people is sort of an easy way to make that happen, especially granting, well, the way my mind worked was granting freedom from that rule. Well, what does being a pirate mean to Luffy? Freedom. What's he want to become? King of the pirates. So he's like, by becoming the king of the pirates, theoretically, by the end of this thing, Luffy could set the world free.
If that is sort of like the
not his intention whatsoever, but just how it ends up with his goals. It is such a Luffy thing to just save the world like that, like the actual world, and upend society so that everybody can be free. Have a worldwide party.
I honestly, I do genuinely think that the end of One Piece will be just like a big party. I feel like it is so intentional that so many of these story arcs end that way, that like it's just like we're gonna have to have everybody come together and like freed from oppression, you know. Mm-hmm. That feels so much of what the themes of the story are kind of like heading towards, and it feels like, I feel like whatever, dang it, how do I want to say this? I feel like because the world government and the celestial dragons don't want anybody researching the Void Century, it makes it feel like whatever like the truth of the poneglyphs is will undermine their authority in some way. Yes.
That's the general feeling I get. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Again, it's just on my part theorizing, taking.
No, I love this. You've said multiple things that I'm just like, yep. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. And that's going to be the fun of this, is if you sort of putting your headspace at where we're at right now, and me taking that and like, well, let me take this and theorize to what it could be in the future, and you just going, mm-hmm,
yep. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But that's not even the end of the set yet. We do have one more chapter to go. We do have SBSs, but there's nothing really that interesting in them. So let's just get right to it with chapter 650, 2 changes to be aware of.
I love this chapter too.
Yeah.
This is another real good one.
And another fun chapter page where we've moved on from Skypiea. It's time for Long Ring, Long Land, where Tanjit has finally successfully met his grandchildren.
That's adorable. And they're playing with the horse, whose name I forget.
I can't remember either, but
Yeah.
oh gosh, I wonder if this means we'll actually see what happened to, because they never got their own cover story.
Oh, Foxy.
Yeah, I don't think we ever got a cover story for Foxy, did we?
I feel like I would have remembered if we did.
I don't think so. So this
Yeah.
might be our next time. We might actually get our first check-in on Foxy.
Yep.
That'll be interesting. But we pick back up and we get more information from Robin, where she has clarified that there are 3 powers deadly enough to destroy the world, and each of these weapons bear the names of gods: Pluton, Poseidon, and Uranus. And I believe this is our first mention of Uranus, right?
Yes. Still no indication what that is, by the way.
It's
no clue.
wow. It's so interesting that Oda chose Uranus rather than Jupiter for that set, because it seemed like with Pluton and Poseidon, it's the sons of Kronos. And I believe Kronos in Roman mythology became Uranus.
Oh, okay.
I believe that's how it worked. Again, it's why it's like, you'd think they go with the 3 brothers, but instead it's father and 2 of the sons. So I'm not sure how that all exactly works. But obviously, Poseidon isn't, is being used as just a general term, not like named after a man. It's just the term for the mermaid princess that can control the Neptunians.
Yeah. I have an explanation on this that I don't think is spoilery, but I think if I feel like I'm getting into some shaky territory, so I think I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Okay. The other thing I'll mention is that we got 2 Roman names for gods and then a Greek name, because I just realized, Neptune is the name of Poseidon in Roman mythology.
Yeah.
It's all mixing and matching stuff. So it's like, that's interesting.
I have... Oh, man. I feel like if I say what I want to say, I'm going to get in trouble.
Yeah, I guess probably have to... There's the pain of this style.
Well, because it's like, there's something about how this all functions in Japanese that makes that discrepancy make sense. I guess it is that way, I think, just because of how the Japanese language works. Maybe, but it could also be potentially on purpose. I have a different interpretation based on how Japanese works, and I think if you're caught up, you know what I mean. If I extrapolate any further from that, I think I'm in hot water. So
right. I mean, the other thing is that as people look for deep meaning for the Christian analogs in Evangelion, and there's like, it's just cool mythology to us, which
it's just cool.
This could also be the same for here, where Oda's is like the sound of these things.
Mm-hmm. You are on the right track, I think, is what I will say. There are things you are theorizing about that are we'll get there.
But we need something to ruin the mood, because we find out that Caribou has stuck around and has overheard all of this.
Oh dear, I feel like he is the worst possible person to learn this.
Really? I'm like, oh, come on. But that's not it. It's time for an update on what's happened in the rest of the world.
Yeah, I love that Jinbei is like Luffy, like, read a newspaper for God's sakes.
If you had read a newspaper at some point during your 2 years of training, you would have learned that Aka Inu and Aokiji had a fight.
Yeah. And this is kind of tying back to what we learned slightly before the time skip, if you remember.
Yes. We did see this, and I was like, Aokiji's going to be the new fleet admiral just because of the recommendation from Sengoku. Did not realize that would not mean that Aokiji gets the job. Mm-hmm. It's just an endorsement, because the dignitaries within the government really wanted Aki Inu instead. And just because, Aokiji is not exactly super motivated, but he was extremely against Aki Inu being the new fleet admiral.
I think that says a lot, that he... For somebody who's normally very easygoing, his hard line was not letting Aka Inu run the Navy. I think that is very telling.
Yeah, that is, oh boy. So they had a one-on-one duel on an island, and the loser would have no quarrel with the outcome. The winner of the fight would seize the right to command the Navy. It raged for 10 days, and everything was evenly matched. And in the end, Aka Inu emerged victorious, and Sakazuki, now he's not going to be called Aka Inu anymore. It's Sakazuki is the new fleet admiral of the Navy.
Yes. I mean, I think we talked about that before. The titles as admirals are titles, so if you're not an admiral anymore, you lose that title. So that makes sense that he's just Sakazuki now.
Yeah. And so Luffy immediately questions, so is Aokiji dead? It's like, no, they were both really injured, and even Aka Inu couldn't bring himself to finish the job because he was a longtime comrade. But because Aokiji did not want to work for him, he left the Navy.
That's huge.
that is a major shakeup where now two of the admirals we've known for how long are, well, one's gone, the other one got a promotion, and it's just like, oh, that has some implications from what we know of Aka Inu. Oh,
yeah,
boy.
we've got 2 slots to fill, basically, for the admirals, which is really nuts.
Yeah, it is. Sakazuki has proven to be quite effective. The Navy HQ has grown far more powerful and determined. And not only that, Blackbeard is making strides of their own with his crew.
I love that Chopper's like, the guys who wrecked my homeland. Like, yeah, that's the important detail here.
I guess that is just as a reminder, I guess. But because of his knowledge of Whitebeard's territory and having the Tremor fruit, he has conquered a bunch of that territory and is now considered officially one of the 4 emperors alongside Shanks, Kaido, and Big Mom. This
is our first time with our on-screen confirmation that Blackbeard is an emperor now. But I feel like we kind of, I want to say at some point in the post-war, we were kind of like, yeah, he's probably an emperor.
Yeah.
That makes
easy
the most
assumption
sense
to make.
Yes.
Here's the other interesting thing here. So there's a rumor that they're now really focusing on hunting down powerful devil fruit users because they have the means to kill them and loot their abilities. So, I actually forgot that point. I thought it was just the 2, but is he able to, I don't know if he's able to grant them to his crew where they have some multiple abilities or a stockpile for himself that he can just get all those abilities. I have no idea.
I will say, at least, it seems like, because when Blackbeard did it, the way that the dialogue, it sounded like it was kind of risky. Or it was like, we don't even know if this is going to work.
Yeah.
So, however they do it, which I still don't know, they seem to have got it down to a science, at least.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I love the little side dialogue. It's like they're searching for really powerful devil fruit users, and poor Chopper's like, "Oh crap, I'm screwed." But nobody's gonna want the human fruit.
So Jinbei's getting ready to give Luffy the full warning, and Luffy's not even paying attention. He's just eating. It's like, call yourself the captain. Keep yourself informed. Just like, no, we're listening. It's like, and Chopper's just like, wait, the captain isn't the guy who ignores everything. So. Oh, he's just eating sweets, which surprised me with him declaring they're even better than the meat. That's saying something for Luffy.
Yeah, who are you? What have you done with Luffy? I do love poor Jinbei. Just now that he kind of has a good indication of how Luffy is as a captain, he's like, "Oh, you poor souls."
Yeah, he's just like, "I'll take my chances when it counts. That's fine." Here comes Cammy, who saw Shirahoshi back to her room. And Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro sense something. We should go check on that.
That sounds like observation hockey.
Oh, yeah, it does. And sure enough, despite Shirahoshi being back in her room, Caribou is waiting, and he's trying to absorb her into his body like all the treasure.
Which is just a horrifying visual. I hate it.
Oh, it looks awful. I hate this guy.
I do love the visual, though, of Luffy walking in, chomping on some meat, and then you see him freak out, Straw Hat, and he just goes flying out of the castle.
Luffy beats him without a problem. He's Team Rocket-esque, but he does have some threat to him. So
he has some threat, but he's also just gross to look at. I hate him.
That's when basically like, oh geez, that's the one who took all the treasure, and look over there, that the right tower of the palace. He cut it clean in 2. Must have done it when we weren't looking. It's like, no, it was Zoro. Shut up. Could have just cut the bars of cage, but no, that wasn't enough.
That's great.
And then I love Nami's like, wait, treasure thieves? Like, he went off and made it with all the castle's treasure? It's like, wait, aren't they national treasures? Aren't you going to chase them? Chase them? It's like, no, that the treasure is cheap in comparison to seeing that my people are safe. So, and Nami's immediately like, so what if we get him back for you? And he's just immediately like, well, you are welcome to it. Yeah, I would be happy to give it to those who save my kingdom. And then she's like, why did you kick him out? We needed him.
Using the same framing that they kicked out Caribou. And then there go, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji. And Sanji's got hearts on his little trail as he's getting kicked through the air. That's great.
Got to get that treasure back. But we also learned that something strange has happened to Hody and his men. Their shackles are off. And I do love this reveal where he's just like, hatred never disappears. Vengeance will have its day. Bring me Straw Hat and I will kill him myself. And then we pull back and we finally see the downsides of this pill and how it shortens a lifespan. Yep. They've rapidly aged into old men.
Which explains like it's almost like their hair was, or at least in Hody's case, because his hair just completely changed. It went all white. Just
that last little flash, and it's just like, whew. And he's still trying to issue out those threats. He's like, you'll never keep me trapped in this flimsy cage. I'll tear the bars apart. And he just hurts his hand trying to move it.
Oh, old people.
And that's when we learned that where did Hody get the energy steroids? They were what was stored in the Tamate treasure box. And the contents vanished 10 years ago. Never did figure out who did it, but it was around the time that Hody left. Man, you guys' investigation skills suck.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like we're learning it back again, like right at the start of the arc. They're kind of incompetent.
Yeah. And that's when we get a full explanation of the pills inside the Tamate box, because they're so ancient that even the legends surrounding them are vague. So some say it gives strength of 1,000. Others say they age the imbiber. Oh, I just remembered where we heard the Tamate box before, because Vanderdecken wanted to use it on Shirahoshi when she was too young.
Oh.
Because of the aging.
Well, that maybe would have had the... God, that's so gross. It would have had the reverse effect where it would have... Well, it would have wrecked her body, one, but also it would have turned her super strong.
Yeah, that would have been something.
So that would have... That idea was never going to work.
Yep. Neptune's just like, so I think this dangerous drug was just labeled treasure in order to keep it out of people's hands. But you opened a box that was never meant to be opened and were fool enough to think you've been given great power without price. So ends your vengeance. And, all I have for you is pity now. And they still have learned nothing.
Nothing, yeah. Which I actually kind of really like, that they are so fueled by hatred that, like, that is all that they have, and even though that they're going to die, like, right, like they're
oh yeah, they are they are effectively dead. I like that it is symbolized that we have cut the ties of this way of thinking from the young people, and it is left in the past with the old.
Yes, exactly. I feel like that them literally turning old really feels like the symbolism, right?
Oh, it's just right on the head.
Yeah, let the old ideas die. And I like that final line from Fukaboshi where he's just like, "You killed my mother, but I do not hate you. I simply ask that you shut your mouth. I wouldn't want the children to hear your poison." Just bringing it back around one more time.
You know how we have those extra characters that are you don't think much of but are kind of MVP? I think Fukaboshi qualifies for that for Fishman Island.
I love this guy. Yeah, Fukaboshi's great.
Absolutely. But we end the chapter with the discovery, or the Minister of the Left learning that two people called Peckhams and Baron Tamago are at the sweets factory, agents of Big Mom.
Oh,
there's a problem.
Yes.
They have no sweets to send to this month because the factory is ransacked by Hody's goons, and the sweets that they did have were all given to the Straw Hats to be enjoyed at the feast. I feel like you should have kept the sweets back in that case.
Well, and I love this last little line from the Minister of the Left where it's like, well, we'll see if that excuse actually works. But, Big Mom of the Four Emperors is a monster who would even destroy a nation for the sake of her sweets. Oh, God.
That's bad. Because Luffy will destroy a nation for his friends. She'll do it for some candy. That's not so good.
I feel... We're gonna learn a little more about Big Mom, it seems, and I was kind of like, I had vaguely remembered that with the passing of Whitebeard, that Fishman Island was now Big Mom's territory, and that, you know, they had the whole like sweets factory and all of that. So this really feels like the mob boss is coming in to collect some debts.
Yeah.
Except it's like, oh, you know, I can't pay rent this month. You know, it's like, oh, we can't pay candy.
It's that one thread that was planted early on that we have not seen any kind of anything pulled from it. Now it's time to pull from it. So it's fascinating, but
it feels like, you know, we're here, we're about to go into the new world, so it feels like, yeah, all right, like let's start meeting these emperors, you know, let's start seeing their pirate crews. So I'm excited to actually see, like, we don't really know anything about Big Mom at this point. She's been mentioned like twice. So
I know we've heard more stories about Kaido, and
then
we don't know much.
Yeah, so that's exciting. It feels like the world is about to open up. Mm-hmm. And I can personally attest that I'm a big fan of both Peckhams and Baron Tamago.
Oh, nice. I mean, that's it for the chapters, and I gotta say, I mean, obviously we'll have more to say by the end, but as far as the core itself, obviously when the post wrap up stuff or more lore and stuff gets dropped, and we've seen that many times before, but I like the themes. The themes of Fishman Island are what carry it.
It's kind of some of the best of the series, I think. It really feels like Oda hit his stride in terms of just the nuance to the storytelling, the kind of how I don't know. There's something about, look, man, I'm an adult black fellow. I think stories about racism are gonna hit different for me. They just always will. Yeah, you know, especially one that's so specifically black coded as this story. So it's just kind of like, oh yeah, no, it's gonna work for me. But even I was shocked at how much it really just like landed for me. And so I'm really glad that Oda was able to discuss these themes in a way that I think was mostly successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, he had that trial run with the Shandians, and that worked in and of itself. But this hits in a much more modern sense, and yeah,
it feels so much. Again, not, you know, kind of true to life. Like, it feels like we're seeing the consequences and like the victims of systematic oppression in a way that, like, that stuff was there with the Shandians and the Skypians, but it was so much more of like, it is a land conflict between like two sides, whereas the plight of the fishmen is like, this is the direct consequence of the system that we have right now. Right. Mm-hmm. Like it is so much fueled by like the world government in a way that the story in
the Shandian stuff was much more focused.
And
I don't want to take away from the absolute horrors that the indigenous people have gone through.
Absolutely.
Either.
Yeah.
It is just as horrific as that, but it's because I think it's so much more focused of this side and this side, and sort of the even part, and already having that friendship, it's different because it's not, again, it's not through the system. It could have been through the system if when what's his name came back to the Shandians and they happened to be gone, if they weren't gone at that point, if they didn't get blasted up to Skypiea, then I think we'd have a story involving what we'd expect for indigenous people. But yeah, it sort of lessened into a struggle of land, not lessened, but focused it into a struggle of land rather than the racism and colonizing in that case.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, like this, I guess because we've seen so much more of like the world government and you know, the celestial dragons and things like that, like we already as the reader, like we kind of know, we have an understanding of how crappy the system is, and it's crappy it sucks for everybody. Yeah. We are constantly seeing just how much it is ruinous. And so with that context being like, well, all right, here are a bunch of consequences of that. And I think that hits in a really, really big way for me, which is to say that I don't really love a whole lot else about this arc. But I love this one thing about it a lot.
Pretty much, yeah. I think that's the best way to put it. That it does one thing extremely well, perhaps the best of the series.
Yeah.
Everything else is struggling to keep up.
Yeah, for sure. But I kind of come out of this feeling like this is a story that needed to be told and has a lot of merit. And of course,
I appreciate it more than I thought I would.
I think so. Yeah, I'm way more caught on it than I was in the past. I think I opened to this when we got here. I was like, this is my least favorite arc in the series. I don't know if that's changed necessarily, but like, I can at least say that
mentions more the quality of the rest of it now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's felt lesser than the others, but then you get to it and now it's like it's maybe still your least favorite, but now you can see the quality of it as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm glad that, especially for broad strokes, big picture stuff, I feel like it's only going to become more important with age, much like Skypiea.
It'll be interesting to see if we get these types of discussions again in the future of the series. From my knowledge of our next arc, I don't think we're going to have anything quite this in depth.
No. There are definitely elements of like things that I know are themes that I am excited to talk about. It's not nothing. And I think it is much more of playing to the, I don't know if series strengths is the right word, but like fan expectations of kind of like, here's all the cool stuff you would expect from a sort of a quintessential One Piece arc.
Right.
So there's a lot to chew on. You know, even a sort of a just okay One Piece arc is still pretty good, it turns out.
Funny that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with that, I believe we've said all we've wanted to say about chapters 646 to 650 of One Piece. Thank you so much for listening, and you can find more of my ramblings and stream VODs over at BitNerd Games on YouTube, or BitNerd with an underscore at the end on Twitter, and also on Blue Sky without the underscore. And Brandon, where can everyone find you at?
I am Brandon Bovia on Twitter and Blue Sky, talking about anime, manga, games, and my job, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm excited to watch a better version of Fishman Island and potentially the best version of Fishman Island. You know, maybe
it could be. It very well could be.
We'll
so
see. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So if you'd like to help us out more, you can support the podcast over at patreon.com/Derek Bittner. That's DERRICKBITNER to listen to the next episode ad-free 3 days early. And make sure to return next time as we discuss chapters 651 to 655 of One Piece. So until then, my friends, bye.
Remember to take life one piece at a time.
I want you to join my crew.